It's been a whopping 30 years since the cult comedy favorite Coming to America was released. That's right, it's been that long. The highly anticipated sequel will be released in March of this year and will feature some very familiar faces and also some new faces. Some of the cast was at the height of their fame during the release of the first film, but that's not to say that it's been smooth sailing since then. We're talking prison sentences and storming out of the Oscars kind of drama. We're taking a deep dive into the lives of the cast that will be bringing us the long-awaited Coming to America. James Earl Jones. His voice brought Mufasa and Darth Vader to life, so this man needs no introduction whatsoever.
No, I am your father.
Despite his fame, there may be a few things that you didn't know about the legendary James Earl Jones. When James was a young boy, he actually had a stutter. He was so embarrassed by his speech disorder that he didn't speak a word for 8 years. Finally, one of his teachers at the time recommended that he read poetry out loud to overcome his stutter. It was through his practice of poetry that he was introduced to acting and quickly fell in love with the art of performance. James was also an officer in the U.S. Army. He served his country proudly and still managed to become one of the most famous actors of the century. Not only has he made an impact on the world on screen, he's made it off screen too.
Simba, you have to jump. Don't be afraid. Come to me, son.
Wesley Snipes. When the announcement was made that Wesley Snipes was going to be featuring in the sequel of Coming to America, there's no doubt that people thought, hang on, where's this guy been? And it is indeed a very valid question. What most of you might not know is that the Blade action star spent almost 3 years in prison for tax evasion. There were a few instances that occurred leading up to Snipes' arrest, along with a 30-mile high-speed chase with a state trooper that the actor claimed he had no idea was following him. Wesley seemed to have everything going for him in the 90s, and even got his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But whether it was a few hits of bad luck or poor decisions, the actor fell from fame just as quickly as he rose up into it. And when he fell hard. First, it started with the rumors of the actor being difficult to work with on the set of Blade. Then none of his films seemed to do well and were given a B-grade status, and then his arrest followed. It was also not the first time Snipes was arrested. While driving a company car leased by his own production company, the actor was pulled over and arrested for having allegedly stolen the car. He explained that he was forced to lie spread-eagled and handcuffed on the pavement with both a knee on his neck and a gun pointed at his head. He was taken into custody and said he was taunted for hours. The whole experience was humiliating, Snipes said. However, after what seemed like an endless run of bad luck, Snipes said he took a lot of time to reflect on his life while he was in prison. The biggest thing I got from it was learning the value of time and how we often squander it. I understand that very clearly now, having been away from my family and loved ones 2.5 years. And now, he's going to star in one of the most anticipated sequels in the world of comedy. Funnily enough, the actor had initially auditioned for the first film and didn't end up getting the role. Now, almost 35 years later, he's finally going to be starring alongside Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy.
Well, who is Eddie? And what does Eddie sound like?
What are you talking about? This is me.
The comedy king himself. Coming to America is without a doubt one of Eddie's most well-known films, along with The Nutty Professor, Norbit, and his voice for Donkey in Shrek. For a while, it seemed like Murphy was one of the busiest actors in Hollywood. And then he wasn't. What happened? Well, the actor claimed to have taken a sabbatical, wanting to focus on his role as a father to his 10 kids. But a little birdie told us that it may have been something a little more than that. It seems that over the years, Eddie's ego grew a little too big for others around him to handle. There were also a few instances where he behaved in ways that his fellow Hollywood stars weren't too impressed about. Well, back in 2007, after the release of Dreamgirls, the actor received an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in the film. It marked one of his very serious roles, and Murphy felt like this was a huge step forward in his career. Unfortunately, he ended up losing to Alan Arkin from Little Miss Sunshine. According to those at the awards, Murphy was so enraged by his loss that he stormed out of the ceremony after the announcement. So, along with the tantrum of his loss at the Oscars, Eddie was also nominated and won the Razzie for Worst Actor of the Decade back in 2010. Ouch, that must have hurt. The actor also refused to host the 2012 Actors because at the time, one of his good friends, Brett Ratner, made a number of homophobic comments and remarks prior to the award season, which resulted in Brett being disinvited from the Oscars. This came off as a bad move on Eddie's account because it seemed as though he stood by what his friend was saying. So whether he took the hiatus from Hollywood because of his run of a few bad decisions or to focus on being a family man, we'll leave that for you to decide. All that we know is that the sequel to Coming to America is rumored to be the actor's big comeback, and fans can't wait to see where the story goes. Shari Headley. Now, before you think that she's also fallen off the face of the earth, she hasn't. Headley has in fact had a consistent working career as an actress. You've just been looking for her in all the wrong places. Headley has been focusing on her career in the world of TV rather than film, and she's been doing really well for herself. Just because her name hasn't been plastered on billboards doesn't mean she's been unsuccessful. Her net worth is around $2 million, so it's fair to assume that she's done something right over the years. It's no surprise that the actress will be making a comeback in the sequel of Eddie Murphy's film, because it wouldn't be the same without her. She's going to remind Hollywood exactly who she is and make her comeback a very memorable and hilarious one. Arsenio Hall. Here we have another booming comedian of the 90s who took a step back from fame, even after he had his very own show, and it's for the reason that touched many hearts. In 1988, comedian Arsenio Hall was catapulted into fame alongside his friend Eddie Murphy after the release of Coming to America. And a year later, he signed a contract to host a syndicated late-night talk show, The Arsenio Hall Show. But after just 6 years of his show, he decided to step away from the spotlight of Hollywood. When you have that feeling of, there's something else for me to do, and this is occupying your life 24/7, wrong or right, you need to go, Hall told CBS of his sudden departure from the show. In a very emotional interview with Oprah, the actor explained his reasons for taking a step back from fame, and it was all for his son. With tears in his eyes, Hall opened up about wanting to be there for his son for everything, and not miss out on any important milestones. He wanted to be a present father, despite things not having worked out with the mother of his child. As his son, Arsenio Jr., grew older, he began to slowly take on a few acting jobs, making sure that he wouldn't spend too much time away from his son. Finally, it was Arsenio Jr. who convinced his father to take an opportunity on The Celebrity Apprentice, and with that, began his slow return into the spotlight. I think I can finally juggle the dad thing and the work thing all at the same time, something I know mothers do every day. I'm happy I made a choice to be there for my son, to watch all the games with my son. And now I just hope people still want me to make them laugh. There's no doubt that the return of Arsenio's role in Coming to America has fans over the moon. Leslie Jones. She's a Saturday Night Live comedic legend that will have you bent over in stitches when she performs her skits.
Kiss my butt. Kiss it. Kiss it. Kiss it. What's your pretty mouth? Yeah. I just showed you what's gonna happen to you when you go to jail, Colin.
Believe it or not, Leslie didn't always know she wanted to be an actress. She initially planned on becoming a lawyer, but changed her mind and switched between a few majors, including business accounting and computer science, and eventually ended up majoring in communications. She felt quite lost and misplaced after she graduated, and wasn't sure what she wanted to do with her life. She debated a career in basketball, which she was incredibly talented at. She actually got into Chapman University on a basketball scholarship. The comedian began to dabble in stand-up after one of her friends had entered her into a comedy competition on campus, and it doesn't come as a surprise to us that she won.
The other day, the newscaster was like, if you see a mountain lion, do not approach it. I was like, who is this commercial for?
With her first win under her belt, she left for LA and made an attempt to perform at some clubs. Unfortunately, Jones wasn't met with a warm welcome and was even booed off stage while opening for Jamie Foxx. At the age of 47, Leslie joined the Saturday Night Live cast of comedians. She was in fact one of the oldest actors to ever join the cast of the show.
Now then, Miss Thomas, have you ever attended high tea?
No, but I've had tea while I'm high.
The rest is history, with Leslie's career soaring through the sky as one of the world's funniest comedians today. Coming to America clearly has a stellar cast, bringing some of the 90s most beloved comedians back to the big screen. Fans can't wait for the sequel because they're quite sure it's going to be nothing short of comedy gold.